Kansai, the mother of all angels, stands tall as she faces the Grand Priest, Kaishi, her voice echoing with the weight of ancient authority and a simmering, millennia-old resentment. She makes her intentions clear without a hint of hesitation. The rigid divine hierarchy must be abolished, and the restrictive neutrality that has long governed the angels must be removed once and for all. Around them, the air in the silent, swirling void of the recently revealed Universe Zero crackles, with the immense, suffocating pressure of newly resurrected deities who share her hunger for change. Maniakas steps forward, his face twisted in a predatory scowl as he demands an end to the stagnation that has defined their existence, throwing a sharp challenge at the very foundations of the multiversal order. A sudden, errant strike of energy from a rebel destroyer flashes through the air, aimed directly at the Grand Priest's head, causing young Kusu to cry out in genuine terror for her father's safety. The atmosphere grows heavy with the metallic scent of ozone and the looming threat of violence as the resurrected destroyers begin to circle the divine leader like wolves closing in on a cornered lion. Vilspring snarls, his eyes narrow and full of spite, as he accuses the Grand Priest of maintaining a selective, hypocritical morality that allowed for the erasure of gods during the Tournament of Power while sheltering the angels. Jeramel, a towering brute of a deity with massive muscles and a thunderous presence, commands that the games end immediately, insisting it is finally time to make their revolutionary vision a reality. Kansai rests her leg upon a lectern with an air of casual defiance, her long, flowing hair catching the strange light of the Zero Realm as she declares that a multiversal war is about to begin. She proclaims with chilling conviction that the revolution starts now, forcing every individual, whether they are a humble mortal or a high-ranking deity, to choose a side in the coming storm. Her stated goal is the creation of a new world, one where a perfect balance finally replaces the current, flawed order that has been maintained by the whims of Zeno. In response to this existential threat, the Grand Priest finally breaks his stoic silence, unleashing a sudden and devastating counterattack that ripples through the fabric of the dimension. The immense exertion required for such a high-level technique takes a visible and painful toll on the Grand Priest, who falls to his knees while crimson blood trickles from the corner of his mouth. Kusu rushes to his side, her small hands trembling and her eyes wide with worry, but he dismisses her concern with a sharp command as he surveys the result of his desperate gambit. The opposing gods and angels now stand perfectly still, their bodies frozen in time and space by the divine energy he has expended to halt their immediate rebellion. He explains through labored, shallow breaths that they must act swiftly to teleport these traitors back to the depths of the Zero Universe and freeze the entire realm to contain the infection. Whis urges the gathered deities to act with absolute speed, recognizing the mounting strain on the Grand Priest's health, even as the old master scoffs at any suggestion of his own frailty. They must gather all 13 Supreme Kais, including the stalwart and ever-loyal Kibito, to provide the collective mystical power necessary for the massive sealing ritual. Hukatale formally greets the arriving Kais with a somber nod, while Whis provides a grim, concise summary of the multiversal threat they now collectively face. Kibito admits the terrifying gravity of the task ahead, yet he expresses a quiet, firm confidence that their combined strength will eventually find a way to succeed. Back on Earth, a serene and golden afternoon persists as the Z-Fighters and their families enjoy a peaceful get-together, blissfully unaware of the cosmic upheaval occurring in the higher realms. Videl and Chi-Chi carry steaming, fragrant plates of food toward a long outdoor table where Krillin, Goten, Trunks, and Pan sit alongside Mr. Satan and Majin Buu. Android 18 darts forward to assist with the heavy trays, her movements sharp and efficient, as Buu eyes the feast with a characteristic wide-eyed excitement that lightens the mood. Despite the laughter and the clinking of silverware, Chi-Chi looks up at the vast blue sky, a flicker of deep, intuitive unease crossing her face as she senses that something is fundamentally wrong. Videl notices the shadow of sadness and anxiety in her mother-in-law's eyes and quietly follows her as she retreats inside the house, leaving the boisterous table behind for a moment of solitude. Goten watches them go with a puzzled expression, asking his brother if their mother is all right, though Videl can only offer a small, uncertain gesture of reassurance in return. Inside the quiet kitchen, Chi-Chi tries to maintain a stiff upper lip, insisting through a forced, fragile laugh and rising tears that Goku is simply being late as he always is. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, desperately attempting to convince herself that her husband's absence is just another instance of his legendary poor social timing. Gohan stands before a mirror in a nearby room, meticulously straightening his tie before deciding the occasion calls for a more casual look, shedding his formal vest for the evening. He steps outside to join the others, his eyes lingering for a moment on the damaged Capsule Corp building, and wondering if the structural cracks were a relic of the recent, intense spar between Goku and Beerus. He ruffles Goten's messy hair as he finally takes his seat, though his own brow furrows with concern when he realizes his father has yet to make an appearance. Bulma's exasperated voice echoes in the background as she shouts at Trunks, who is currently more interested in playing with a dog than sitting down for a family dinner. Across the vast reaches of the multiverse, the same strange and ominous energy begins to manifest in the skies, drawing the eyes of the most powerful and seasoned warriors. In Universe 11, the mighty Jiren subdues a massive, dinosaur-like creature with a single devastating punch before stopping to stare upward at the shifting, turbulent heavens. In the crowded, neon-lit streets of Universe 6, the legendary assassin Hit finishes a contract with silent precision and feels a shift in the atmosphere that halts his departure. On planet Sadala, the fiery Caulifla finishes her 20,000th thumb push-up, dripping with sweat and gasping for air while Kale stands supportively nearby, sensing a change in the wind. Kaba, often teased with the petty nickname Crawler by the arrogant Caulifla, approaches the Saiyan pair just as a massive, glowing ball of light appears in the sky directly above them. Caulifla looks up with a mixture of annoyance and genuine confusion, her hands on her hips as she wonders aloud what this strange, intrusive object could possibly be. Suddenly, a powerful, resonant voice emanates from the sphere, vibrating through the air and demanding the immediate attention of every living soul in the multiverse. It is the Grand Priest, acting as the direct messenger of the one they call God, delivering a decree of such dire importance that it chills the hearts of even the bravest fighters. The Grand Priest announces to the Silent Worlds that an evil angel has rebelled against the divine order, forcing him to expend his power to freeze her and her followers in time. He warns the listeners that this containment is merely temporary, granting the multiverse a brief 2-year reprieve before a total, cataclysmic war begins in earnest. Every individual, from the strongest warrior to the simplest citizen, must prepare themselves to choose a side in the coming revolution, as the current era of peace is now a fragile memory. Piccolo listens to the broadcast in grim, stony silence, his brilliant mind already racing to grasp the terrifying implications of a conflict that will span all of existence. In Universe 11, the leader Toph contacts Jiren to ensure he has witnessed the message, and the greatest hero of that realm stoically confirms he has while preparing for the inevitable. On Earth, Krillin and Android 18 stare into the darkening sky with expressions of pure horror, feeling the weight of a peace that is rapidly slipping through their fingers. Vegeta finally removes his heavy training weights, his face set in a mask of grim, iron determination as he confirms the terrifying news to the gathered, worried group. Chi-Chi's heart sinks into a pit of despair as she realizes Goku is still missing and unreachable, even as the 2-year countdown toward a universal war officially begins. The cosmic silence left in the wake of the Grand Priest's decree hangs heavy over the multiverse, a suffocating shroud that offers no true comfort despite the temporary cessation of hostilities. While the resurrected gods and their celestial attendants remain frozen in a state of suspended animation, the reprieve is a hollow victory, a mere 2-year window of preparation before a total, universal war erupts to consume all of existence. The Grand Priest's voice has echoed through every corner of the cosmos, forcing every living soul to look inward and decide if they possess the resolve to fight or the cowardice to flee, leaving the heroes of Earth to scramble for a strategy in the face of an impending apocalypse. Vegeta stands with a rigid, uncompromising posture, his mind already calculating the grueling training regimens required to bridge the gap between mortal men and the divine. He declares with a sharp, commanding edge that every ally must now define their specific role and set an unwavering goal for the conflict ahead, for there is no room for hesitation in the shadow of such a threat. He turns his gaze toward Bulma, tasking her with the retrieval of the Saiyan known as Broly, though he dismissively refers to the powerhouse's companions simply as the all-green and all-orange ones. Bulma meets his request with an exasperated roll of her eyes, a brief flash of domestic normalcy in the middle of a crisis, as she pointedly reminds her husband that the people he is referring to actually have names. The tension at Capsule Corp escalates as Bulma's voice rises to a piercing screech, her frustration boiling over as she berates Jocko through a communicator, while the sun beats down on the lush, manicured grounds. The Galactic Patrolman offers a litany of selfish excuses, claiming he is far too busy to assist, which only fuels Bulma's legendary temper as she vows to tear the eyes out of the latex-coated alien. Vegeta watches this display with a faint, knowing smirk, noting to himself that even the most formidable warriors in the universe are wise to keep their distance when his wife's fury is fully unleashed. As the door closes on her continued rants, the Saiyan Prince prepares to shift his focus toward the next generation, knowing the survival of their world depends on the strength of those who follow in his wake. Inside the relative quiet of their home, the atmosphere is thick with the scent of tea and the soft sounds of domesticity, though the conversation remains anchored to the grim reality of the future. Gohan sits beside Vegeta while Videl tenderly cares for a fussing baby Pan, the contrast between the innocent child and the looming war casting a somber shadow over the room. Vegeta inquires about Gohan's plans, questioning whether the young scholar will continue to bury himself in his books, or if he will finally reclaim the warrior spirit that once defined him. Gohan, adjusting his glasses with a thoughtful expression, admits that he intends to balance both his studies and his preparation, leading Vegeta to suggest that he join Goku for intensive training under the watchful eye of the angel Whis. Despite the enticing offer to train with his father and the divine mentor, Gohan firmly declines the invitation, his voice steady as he explains that he has already formulated a specific plan for his own development over the next 2 years. He shifts the conversation toward Goten and Trunks, mentioning a specialized hyperbolic time chamber his father described, an idea that sparks a rare glint of approval in Vegeta's eyes. Gohan's thoughts then turn toward the veteran fighters who have long stood by their side, Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien, wondering if their unique skills can still contribute to a war of such staggering proportions. With a final nod to the prince, Gohan takes to the sky, his silhouette a brief streak of light against the clouds as he races toward Krillin's home to rally the rest of the Z-fighters. Gohan touches down on the familiar, salt-sprayed soil outside Krillin's residence, where the small family is enjoying a moment of peace under the afternoon sun. Krillin greets his old friend with a warm smile, setting his daughter down, but the pleasantries are cut short as Gohan immediately asks for the whereabouts of Yamcha and Tien. As if on cue, the two warriors emerge from the house, having gathered there during Goku's previous intergalactic struggles, creating an impromptu reunion of Earth's defenders. The air suddenly shatters with the digital chime of Gohan's phone, and the screen reveals Vegeta standing alongside Beerus and Whis, their faces grim and set in lines of uncharacteristic concern. A chilling, heavy silence descends upon the group as Vegeta's voice crackles through the speaker, delivering a revelation that feels like a physical blow to their collective resolve. He informs Gohan that Goku was caught within the boundaries of Universe Zero when the Grand Priest enacted the temporal freeze, meaning their greatest champion is now trapped and unreachable in a void beyond time. The news leaves Gohan stunned, his breath hitching as he stares at the device in his hand, the weight of a world without his father's protection suddenly feeling twice as heavy. Amidst this shock, the scene shifts toward the stoic Namekian, Piccolo, who finds his solitary meditation interrupted by two familiar figures from the Tournament of Power. Pinella, the formidable Namekian from Universe 6, stand before Piccolo with the supreme Kai Fuwa, their presence a testament to the desperate need for cross-universal alliances. Pinella proposed that joining their unique Namekian abilities will provide the best chance for victory in the coming war, a suggestion that Piccolo initially treats with his trademark indifference. However, after a moment of calculation, he acknowledges the logic in his contribution and agrees to the partnership, though he insists on completing one final, personal task before they depart for their training. Meanwhile, far across the cold reaches of space, a Capsule Corp vessel descends through the turbulent atmosphere of the desolate planet Vampa. The ship touches down with a heavy metallic thud on the dusty ground, and Chilai rushes out with a cry of excitement to greet the visiting scientist, Bulma. Bulma steps out with a bright, confident smile, expressing her delight at seeing her favorite aliens again, though her eyes quickly widen as she takes in the towering, muscular frame of Broly. The legendary Saiyan stands as a silent, imposing mountain of power, his presence so overwhelming that it triggers a flash of territorial protective instinct in Chilai, who demands to know exactly what Bulma wants with him. The conversation turns toward the black ball that had appeared in the sky, a phenomenon that Limo insists was merely a shared, vivid dream. Bulma shakes her head, her expression turning somber as she explains the terrifying truth. The dream was a psychic broadcast from the Grand Priest, intended to warn the billions of beings across the multiverse who were sleeping at the time of the announcement. The realization that an imminent, universal war is a reality rather than a nightmare sends a shiver through the group on Vampa, further emphasized when Bulma's communicator chimes with a message from Whis. Back on Earth, Gohan gathers the human warriors, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and the aged Master Roshi, into a room where the air is thick with doubt and the unspoken fear of their own limitations. Krillin voices the insecurity they all feel, questioning what use they could possibly be in a war involving literal deities when they struggled, even in the Tournament of Power. Master Roshi, though leaning on his staff, admits that after 3.5 centuries of training, he feels he has reached the absolute ceiling of his potential, yet the fire of a warrior still flickers in his eyes. Krillin's hand trembles as he clenches his fist, confessing that his heart belongs with his wife and his daughter, but Gohan interrupts with a surge of unyielding passion. He reminds them all that Goku has spent his entire life protecting the weak without a moment's hesitation, and that billions of innocent lives are now counting on them to find their strength. Inspired by this conviction, Yamcha and Tien commit themselves to the fight, while Android 18 leads her husband into the kitchen to offer him a final, quiet moment of support, promising to stand by his side whether he chooses to stay or bleed for the universe. The final moments of preparation take place at the foot of a shimmering transportation cube, where the air hums with divine energy and the bittersweet scent of farewells. Trunks kneels before his little sister, Bula, his eyes welling with tears, as he promises to return as a hero so she can grow up in a world of peace. Vegeta, hiding his own emotions behind a mask of stern authority, ushers Goten and Trunks toward the vessel, but pauses to offer a rare, soft word of comfort to his daughter, assuring her that her father will return. As the heroes board the cube to venture into a realm of training beyond the limits of mortal comprehension, the world they leave behind feels fragile and small against the backdrop of the cosmic storm that is about to break. A small pickup truck scuttles down the desolate roads of a ruined West City, its tires crunching over the scattered debris and shattered remnants of a once vibrant civilization. The vehicle slows to a rhythmic stop in front of Whis, Vegeta, and the young Half-Saiyans as they prepare to board the cube that will transport them to the realm of the gods. Vegeta, his face a mask of stoic determination, finishes slipping on his combat gloves and offers a rare word of gratitude to his father-in-law, Dr. Brief, for agreeing to look after the infant Bula during their long absence. On the shoulder of the road, Trunks holds his baby sister one final time, a couple of silent tears tracing tracks through the dust on his cheeks as he realizes he may not see her grow up. His father ruffles his hair in a silent gesture of shared grief, acknowledging the heavy emotional toll of the looming war. As the group prepares to enter the crystalline transport, Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien step forward to join the vanguard, their expressions reflecting the weight of the universal conflict. Android 18 chooses to remain behind to tend to her daughter, while Master Roshi declines the journey, believing his own training has reached its natural limit. Krillin, the most seasoned of the human warriors, leads the pack with a resolute vow that they will give everything they have to protect their reality. Whis, ever the poised guide, checks the final roster before inquiring where the warriors wish to be deposited for their specialized training. Gohan, acting with a new level of strategic leadership, confirms that this is the full group and requests that their first destination be Universe 9. The request catches Vegeta off guard, his brow furrowing as he questions what possible wisdom or power could be gleaned from such a seemingly insignificant realm. Gohan enthusiastically retorts that Universe 9 is the home of the Trio de Danger, the wolf-like warriors who nearly bested Majin Buu in previous encounters. While Krillin remains skeptical of training with canines, Yamcha radiates an unwavering, almost reckless confidence, dismissively recalling the three Fox guys from stories of the Tournament of Power. The Wolf-Fang fistfighter boasts that he will handle the trio entirely on his own, prompting Tien to advise his friend against such dangerous arrogance. Despite the gravity of their situation, Gohan and Krillin share a lighthearted laugh at Yamcha's characteristic bravado before Whis activates the cube, sealing them inside for the journey. Outside the atmosphere of planet Vampa, the galactic patrolman Jaco announces that, for the first time in history, their ship will cross the threshold between universes. He urges Chile and Lemo to hang on tight as he guns the engines past light speed, pushing the vessel 100 times faster than ever before. Bulma's screams of terror echo through the cramped cabin as the stars blur into streaks of white light, her fury at Jaco's reckless piloting momentarily overshadowing her fear of the destination. Meanwhile, within the serene interior of the cube, the primary heroes enjoy a much more leisurely cruise as they transition from Universe 7 to Universe 9. The silence of the void is finally broken when Whis announces their arrival at planet Kalaman. The warriors peer out to see a world shrouded in a thick, swirling mist that Gohan describes as looking like endless layers of cotton. Whis informs his passengers that the planet is famous for this atmospheric anomaly, a cloud layer stretching 3,000 kilometers thick, nearly half the radius of the world itself. Krillin asks with wide eyes how they are meant to penetrate such a massive barrier, but Whis merely smirks and flicks his wrist. A massive hole is instantly torn through the fog, revealing the path to the surface below. Gohan watches the display of divine power with a grim smile, realizing that if they can traverse entire universes, a few clouds are the least of their obstacles. As the cube descends, the light from distant space pierces through the artificial breach like biblical rays, illuminating a surreal and overcast landscape. Krillin peers over the edge of the transport into the abyss, signaling Yamcha and Tien that it is time to deploy for their training. Gohan, however, remains seated, informing his allies that he will be getting off at the next stop. Yamcha sighs, realizing Gohan has a separate path in mind, while Tien offers a sincere wish of luck to the young Saiyan. As the cube prepares to depart Kalaman, the humans disappear into the mist, leaving Gohan and the boys to continue their journey toward the unknown. Vegeta's stop arrives at planet Sadala in Universe 6, a world that represents the destiny his own people might have shared had their planet not been destroyed. He steps onto the soil of his ancestral home's counterpart, and is immediately approached by a group of native Saiyans who are baffled by the advanced technology of the cube. A warrior with a mechanical arm recognizes Vegeta's Saiyan heritage and greets him as a familiar sight, but the Prince of all Saiyans does not return the warmth. He barks a cold reminder that he is their prince, dismissing them as an army of wimps with pathetic power levels. The natives take an offensive stance, one of them bellowing a challenge, but Vegeta only mocks their weakness, wondering if anyone on this planet is truly worth his time. Further into the cosmos, the cube finally arrives at the small, mystical world belonging to the god of destruction. Trunks and Goten gaze out at Beerus's planet, with Trunks marveling at the coolness of owning an entire world while Goten notes how surprisingly small it is. Lord Beerus, startled from his repose, jumps up and angrily demands to know why Whis has brought uninvited guests to his domain. He furiously shakes his head, insisting that his planet is not a club med for Seinen children, and that they should go home immediately. Whis giggles and implores the god to be indulgent, but Beerus remains adamant, his irritation radiating through the air. The dismissive remarks about a club med spark a fire within Goten, who is already grappling with the terrifying possibility that his father is dead. He stares at the god of destruction, his voice trembling with a mix of grief and rage, as he asks if Beerus is serious about hoarding a whole planet while the universe is at stake. Beerus warns the boy to watch his tone, coldly stating that Goku was a hothead who would have died one way or another when the actual war began. This final insult snaps Goten's restraint, and the boy launches himself at the deity, ready to defend his father's honor regardless of the consequences. Trunks desperately tries to leap between his friend and the god, shouting for Goten to stop his crazy suicidal charge. Goten ignores the plea, snarling for Trunks to get out of the way as he prepares to strike at the Supreme Being. Beerus doesn't even move from his spot, catching Goten's face in his hand and beginning to utter the word of erasure, Hakai. He pauses at the last second, perhaps deciding a different lesson is necessary, and instead flickers his finger against the boy's forehead. The impact sends Goten flying through a small satellite before he collapses, knocked out cold by the divine flick. Beerus turns back to Whis, his voice calm but absolute, stating that there will be no guests on his planet, and they must practice elsewhere. Back on the surface of planet Kalaman, the human warriors find themselves lost in a dense, bustling crowd of natives who seem completely unable to understand their language. Tien attempts to communicate with one local after another, but he is met only with blank stares and silence. Krillin deduces that the locals must speak a dialect entirely foreign to their own, which strikes him as strange since the trio de Dondra understood them perfectly in the past. They find themselves isolated in a sea of strangers, the situation threatening to derail their training before it has even begun. Unbeknownst to them, Basil, Lavender, and Bergamo are watching from around a nearby corner, wondering if these visitors are responsible for the hole in their sky. As Vegeta's initial skirmish with the Sadala Saiyans reaches a tense standoff, a voice suddenly booms from behind a nearby hill. Caulifla emerges, her eyes widening in shock as she demands to know who has been piling up her comrades. She is completely baffled to see Vegeta standing in her home realm, questioning what possible reason the prince could have for traveling to Universe 6 for his training. The air is thick with unspoken questions about whether he intends to spar with the fusion Kefla, and what hidden destination Gohan has chosen for his own growth. With only 2 years until the Universal War, the training of the Z-Warriors has begun in earnest, scattered across the multiverse in a desperate bid for survival.